To restore the wilderness and bring back the wildlife to areas devastated by human activity. This is the immense challenge that daring women and men have decided to take up in various parts of the world. In the vast prairies of South America, the plains of the Kalahari and the African bush, teams of scientists are working to rewild natural habitats that were thought to be irredeemably lost. The Tswalu Reserve has come a long way. Several decades of intensive cattle farming and trophy hunting have destroyed these South African lands, wiping out the wildlife. The region narrowly escaped an ecological disaster, but thanks to an important ecosystem restoring program, the situation has changed. Today, eland, zebra, and other large herbivores have been successfully reintroduced. The teams at the Tswalu Reserve are now facing a new challenge: to re-establish the lion and the African wild dog populations. The Tswalu Nature Reserve is located in the province of Cape North, right next to the border with Botswana. It stretches over 1,000 kilometers in the southern part of the vast, arid region of the Kalahari. In Tswana language, Tswalu means new start. In 1998, this land's fate took a turn for the better thanks to Nicky Oppenheimer. The wealthy South African businessman decided to buy a hunting reserve, and over the years, he purchased around 30 farms, which were then dismantled to attract the wildlife back to the area. Since then, Gus van Dijk, the director of wildlife, has been managing all the operations.
Tswalu is a conservation project that has developed over the last 20 years. The first step in habitat restoration is just to give the area space to recover, to restore itself.
In order to free the parcelled land, hundreds of fences had to be taken down.
As Tswalu has grown and acquired more land, these fences that have been a barrier for wildlife come down, and the whole ecosystem just takes a huge, big breath of fresh air and spreads a little bit at a time.
Alongside the herbivores and large predators, rare and vulnerable species can enjoy Tswalu's renewal, such as the strange aardvark, the mysterious pangolin, and their neighbors, the meerkats. Tswalu is part of a natural habitat conservation and restoration endeavor known as rewilding. Each step of this long process calls for the expertise of fauna and flora specialists. Tanya Anderson is a botanist, and she's studying a new section of land recently acquired by the reserve. She's monitoring the regeneration of the soil damaged by overgrazing and the trampling of thousands of hooves.
So the work we're doing here in Tswalu is looking at the vegetation change over a long term and to see how the veld is recovering. Today we're looking at this old water point that has been here for many, many years, and it was closed about 2 years ago. After 2 years, we see that there's very few little plants that have come in. This one over here is a little helichrysum, it's called. It's a little annual plant, and it would be one of the first little plants that will come and start to grow on bare patches. And they're generally called pioneer plants. And slowly, as the whole area recovers and more species come in, we'll get more grasses, and it will start achieving the balance that we get in the veld that hasn't been disturbed. And then there will be a lot more food and cover for the game.
As a result of these efforts, this semi-arid milieu is coming back to life. Water is scarce here. There are no rivers, but Tswalu receives twice as much rainfall as other areas in the Kalahari. 250 millimeters of rain waters these parched lands every year. It's not much, but it enables the flora to thrive. And when the first plants start growing back, it means a new cycle is about to begin. The vegetation slows down the flow, letting the water seep into the ground. It only takes a few years for the grass, shrubs, and small thorn trees to grow back and reclaim the veld. Eland, oryx, and kudu come back to graze in these new prairies. Their feces fertilize the land, disseminate the seeds, and stimulate the regeneration of the plant cover. The new dynamics has encouraged the reserve's managers to introduce new species of endangered herbivores. For around 15 years now, an area devoid of predators has been used to raise a species of giant antelope, the sable antelope. The large dominant males won't tolerate any rivals on their territory. They firmly watch over their harem of around 15 females and youngsters. Their curved and formidable horns can sometimes measure as long as 1.60 meters. Duels are common and violent, but seldom lethal. Introduced at the same time as the sable antelope, the Hartmann zebra are a very rare species with a population that today has grown from 60 to 200 individuals. Formerly confined to an isolated area of the former hunting reserve, the giraffe once again roamed the vast stretches of the veld in search of acacias. Little by little, Tswalu is regaining its original appearance. The herbivore populations are thriving and growing rapidly.
The arid savanna is rich with ungulates, herbivores, animals that are eating the leaves and the grasses. So there's a huge diversity in the Kalahari, from small little antelope that are nibbling at little leaves, right up to big giraffe that are eating off the tops of these trees, and everything in between. So this diversity is part of what makes the Kalahari so special. And part of the restoration process has been to make sure that all the ungulate species or the herbivore species are brought back into the ecosystem and can find a natural equilibrium with both the habitat and with the predators.
Over time, the herbivores will colonize all of Tswalu territory. Gus van Dijk and his teams have decided to move to the next phase and reintroduce large predators so that Tswalu may find a new balance. They've chosen to start with lion and wild dog populations. This morning, Roxanne Collins, a carnivore specialist, is leaving on a mission to the Febvre sector. The 20,000-hectare electrified fenced-in area is reserved for the lions and is separated from the Koranenberg sector, where the wild dogs live.
Tswalu is a very unique reserve in the sense that it's split in two. I'm on the eastern side of Tswalu Reserve. This camp is called Febvre. The lions are the apex predator on this side of the reserve. There are about 22 lions here, and the lions here are more specifically Kalahari lions. So basically my research entails comparing the effects the lions have on the smaller predators this side compared to the other side of the reserve, Koranenberg, where the apex predators are wild dog and cheetah, and the effect those apex predators have on the smaller predators there. Yeah, these are lion tracks.
In 2001, Tswalu, along with other reserves, joined an exchange and protection program for Kalahari lions, a population of less than 1,000 individuals.
So there's the track, and you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fingerprints in the whole paw print, and they're going in that direction if you follow them.
Roxanne is tracking 2 males that were reintroduced in 2011. Distinguishable by their brown mane, Kalahari lions have adapted to this semi-arid environment. They have longer legs and leaner bodies than their savanna cousins. Larger paws allow them to move more swiftly across the sand. But most of all, they can withstand extreme temperatures.
These are the 2 males. They're actually brothers, and they'll go between the prides very often. When it comes to what they call trophy cascading, where the top apex predators have an effect on not only the ungulate species, but ultimately all the way down to the small mammals and also the vegetation surrounding them, because they exert what they call top-down forces on everything under them in the food pyramid.
By attacking large herbivores, lions and wild dogs keep them from proliferating. But they are also likely to attack other predators. Roxanne Collins wants to measure their impact on the smaller carnivores that return to Tswalu on their own, such as the bat-eared fox, the jackal, and the genet. The scientist has decided to set up cameras to record their passage and check what other types of predators share the lion's or the wild dog's territory.
Okay, so camera needs to be placed 75 centimeters off the ground, because the predators we are trying to capture on the camera don't really get much higher than that. The camera will capture anything that moves till about 25 meters out. The camera traps are the best way to determine abundances and diversity of the predator numbers. They are the least invasive manner of observing the predators in their natural habitat without scaring them or changing their natural behavior.
Another way to measure the presence of carnivores is by comparing the quantity and diversity of prey in each sector.
What happens is you set the trap inside like that, and then there's a little trap door at the back. So once the mouse walks in and he steps on the trap door, it closes. So it doesn't hurt him at all. I am catching small mammals. Because I'm studying the mesopredators, the smaller predators like the black-backed jackal and the Cape fox and the bat-eared fox, their main diet consists of rodents like your gerbils, your mice, your rats, your sengies, your shrews.
This study will help to estimate the number of small carnivores essential to a well-balanced food chain, because in a very closed environment such as this, the superpredators could eradicate them. On the other side of the reserve, in the Koranenberg sector, Gus van Dyck is looking for the wild dogs. Every day, he monitors this pack of around 20 individuals. Gus has put them under high surveillance. Although they are equipped with radio collars, wild dogs are not easy to spot. They can cover several dozens of kilometers a day in this sector of the reserve, which is 3 times larger than the lion's kingdom. Wild dogs are only found in sub-Saharan Africa. Today, there are only 6,000 individuals left in the wild. This pack is all the more precious as previous attempts at reintroduction have so far failed.
We chose to reintroduce the wild dogs really as one of the last stages of restoring this great Kalahari wilderness. This pack has a very interesting background. 4 years ago, we introduced a wild dog pack into Tswalu, and for a while the pack flourished. They bred in their first season, they had puppies, and then in the second season, just before they were about to have more puppies, canine distemper virus, which is a virus typical mostly to dogs, actually swept through the population and decimated it. And only 5 animals remained, 5 males that weren't with the pack at the time.
In 2017, a private reserve in the KwaZulu-Natal relinquished 4 females to reform a pack in Tswalu.
Wild dogs represent true wilderness. They only survive these days in Africa in areas that are particularly large and remote, and that is why they are so threatened. These large conservation areas in Africa are shrinking. There's human encroachment, they're encountering people, they're encountering diseases, their prey is being reduced.
This pack is the species' final hope in this part of the Kalahari. It's doing well, but Gus has just noticed that the alpha female is missing. Her absence is worrisome because she ensures the pack's cohesion and viability. Gus is going to try to find her before nightfall. The wild dogs have sniffed out a prey. Their hunting tactics are well honed. The pack spreads out to encircle the prey. This warthog's chances of escape are slim. Wild dogs are known for being the most ferocious of carnivores. Often, they even skip the execution stage. And as hunters, their success rate is much higher than the lions. A researcher at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, Wendy Panino, monitors the evolution of this still convalescing natural environment. She focuses specifically on a strange scaly creature, the ground pangolin. When the pangolin is healthy, so is the ecosystem. This is what is called a bioindicator species. Pangolins are the most poached animals in the world. They are a highly endangered species. So to see them thrive in Tswalu would be a great victory.
We go tracking early in the morning. So first of all, we know that people haven't driven over the tracks or walked over the tracks, so we've got fresh tracks. And second of all, the wind blows a lot during the day, and so we lose the tracks. And so the earlier we do it, the more we've got fresh tracks on the ground.
Tracking this nocturnal animal that spends its days buried in the ground is like going on a treasure hunt.
And we've just found some tracks going across the road, so we're going to be following these tracks up and hopefully we can come to a burrow.
The tracking is seldom successful because a pangolin has a dozen burrows spread around a territory of around 6 square kilometers.
This is always quite a nice thing to see when you're following the tracks. When you come to a foraging site and you can see where it's been digging, you can see the tail marks in the sand over there. It's quite nice.
The biologist makes sure to record the GPS position. She will come back at nightfall to try and surprise the pangolin when it comes out of its burrow. Gus van Dijk hasn't been able to pick up the signal on the alpha female's collar. He's hoping that she's just holed up in her burrow.
Okay, the wild dogs have killed a female kudu over here. Looks like they killed it early this morning. So there's virtually no meat left on this animal. It's just the skeleton and the skin. And the wild dogs will be somewhere around here, close by, near the shade. Maybe go for a drink of water after they've killed something this big. There's the whole pack looking very happy with their stomachs nice and full. Tswalu is important for ecosystem preservation, to make sure that there are places where animals can still hunt, where scavengers can still find food. The scavengers like a brown hyena coming in to feed over here. This all represents huge successes for Tswalu.
Against all odds, a carrion eater is making its big comeback in the area. The brown hyena, an endangered species.
Brown hyenas in particular will be able to come in, break the bones apart and eat on it.
The return of these brown hyenas brings incredible hope for the conservation of the species, of which there are less than 8,000 individuals left. Across Africa, hyenas fall prey to cattle farmers who aren't afraid to poison carcasses to eliminate predators and carrion eaters.
That carcass, as it lies there, will feed dozens of species over the next few days.
Since wild dogs and lions have been reintroduced, new scavengers have flown back to the sky over Tswalu. Linda van den Heever, an ornithologist at BirdLife South Africa, wants to make sure that they are safe here.
Vultures are in big trouble. 4 of our 9 vulture species in South Africa are critically endangered, which means that they are one step away from extinction.
This unpopular bird is one of the key players in the area.
Arguably, some of the most important ecosystem services in the world. There is no animal on Earth that can clean a carcass as quickly as a vulture can. It will strip a carcass of meat very, very quickly, and it will prevent diseases like anthrax of spreading because of decomposing carcasses. And even just, it creates an aesthetically better environment. You don't want carcasses lying around rotting all over the place, and vultures do this service free of charge. Every balanced ecosystem needs a good scavenger.
Linda is checking old watering spots to make sure that the large raptors cannot drown in them.
Contrary to popular belief, vultures are actually quite clean and they bathe every single day. This reservoir is vulture safe. That structure that they built there, it's sort of a step ladder, and it's made of iron or steel or something, and then they've covered it with mesh. And the mesh is very important because that will give them further purchase and it won't be covered with algae and things like that, and they can get easier out of the water.
Linda proceeds with her inspection of the reserve. She wants to make sure that every precaution has been taken to keep the large raptors out of harm's way.
This is what we call a three-phase, and there are 3 wires running in parallel. So if the vulture perches on the middle pole and it spreads its wings and it touches the left wire and the right wire simultaneously, it will close the circuit and electricity will flow through it and it'll be electrocuted.
To avoid such incidents, the teams at Tswalu have installed insulation sheaths on the cables where the power poles link up.
Tswalu seems to be an important foraging area for lappet-faced vultures and white-backed vultures. There are also a couple of lappet-faced vultures on the property, and I think we can definitely see an increase in nesting activity, at least in the lappet-faced vultures.
According to her first conclusions, Linda thinks that Tswalu may well become the first vulture conservation area in South Africa. Saving these cleaners will also protect all the other species, because these scavengers greatly reduce the risk of diseases spreading to wildlife and to man. Wendy Penino will have to be patient. Like every evening, the shy pangolins wait for total darkness before they venture outside. The sound of their scales invariably gives them away.
Okay, don't freak out. Don't freak out. I can't actually tell, but I think it's a female. Yep.
With its scaly armor and the gait of a T-Rex, the pangolin could have had a place among the dinosaurs. However, it's a mammal and not a reptile. At the slightest threat, it rolls up to protect the most vulnerable parts of its body. But this time, there's no need to. Placing a tracker on a scale is totally painless.
Sure. For my study, we tagged 6 pangolins so that I could follow specific individuals around so that I can really understand the intimate details of that individual's life. And those 6 pangolins, we're attempting to have them represent the population, essentially. So we need a few more study subjects for the work that we're going to continue doing here at Tswalu.
Following the pangolins while they are hunting is a way to assess the state of the microfauna, which is essential to the ecological balance of the soil.
Pangolins are very specialist feeders and they're going for very specific ants and termites. Pangolins on a nightly basis do eat thousands and thousands and thousands of ants. So we do believe that at some level they do play a role in controlling ants and termite populations.
Wendy noticed that the termite and ant species that pangolins show a preference for are associated with certain types of plants. Thanks to her observations, a research program will be implemented to study the plants that retain humidity in their roots and are responsible for the good health of the microfauna.
It seems like Tswalu's got a healthy population of pangolins, and so there must be something about either the habitats or the prey that's available that makes it a good place for pangolins. And so the conservation of the area is really important if we want to conserve pangolins as well.
Tswalu also provides shelter to other burrowing and nocturnal creatures that have returned. Rare species with large ears and a sharp sense of smell. The ideal outfit for an insect hunter. Such as a small canid called the bat-eared fox. Or the furtive aardwolf, a small striped hyena which, unlike its carnivorous cousins, is a big termite eater. An aardvark suddenly appears. This shy and solitary creature will travel from one termite mound to the other until dawn. In this natural theatre, where each species plays a role in its own way, the aardvark also participates to the ecosystem's equilibrium. With its disproportionate muzzle and pig snout, this atypically profiled animal can eat up to 50,000 termites a day, keeping them from proliferating. The renewal of Tswalu also benefits the meerkats. They appreciate the loose soil of the Kalahari. Here they have no trouble digging to search for larvae or scorpions. Ever since the cattle who were trampling the land were removed, the meerkat colonies have been thriving. Food is plentiful, and the number of births has exploded. dominant female can give birth to 3 babies, 3 to 4 times a year. To watch over them, she relies on extremely alert sentinels. With the seasons, Tswalu is recovering all of its splendor. But restoring these ecosystems requires enormous means. To finance this incredible project, the teams also rely on tourism and the organization of safaris. Lodges have opened, and young local people are being trained to become nature guides.
Okay, guys, today we're doing second sign.
Antenkosi Diba knows the reserve's wildlife like the back of his hand. He's been teaching tourism guiding since 2017.
For one to be a good trekker, firstly, you need to have a compromising and genuine love for the natural environment, also for the wildlife in general. So you have to possess those skills, and you have to always be curious about even the simplest things that you come across in the bush while you're walking or doing whatever you're doing. So you need someone who's got a very humble heart and passionate and highly disciplined.
The students of the Tracker Academy are trained to respect, protect, and gain in-depth knowledge of the wildlife.
As you can see, so this is what the giraffes like, and especially in this area. They mainly feed on these camel thorn trees. So this is correctly a giraffe droppings. Also, when you try to squeeze the dropping, this one is a bit harder because of the content, and that one of the eland is a bit softer because the grass is very soft. So when you squeeze it, it just goes easily. But this one is a bit harder. Okay.
These future guides will soon be the new ambassadors of ecotourism in the south of the Kalahari. Roxanne is back in the lion sector.
I've captured a rodent. Could be Namako rock mouse or it could be a sengi. We'll have to get it out to sea. As I put them in the Ziploc bag. So we'll see if he'll come out. Come on. There we go. Okay, so it's an Namako rock mouse. As we measure his body length from the beginning of his tail to the tip of his nose, it's 9.1 centimeters.
Roxanne is only beginning her research.
12.4 centimeters.
She will have to lay traps for several months before she can start to draw any conclusions. Meanwhile, the footage from the cameras could enlighten her on the diversity and quantity of predators populating Tswalu. Soon, the images will yield their secrets.
Video footage that I've captured thus far of the predators. On the Lechaba side, I've captured the lions, the bat-head fox and the Cape foxes, and the black-backed jackal, and African wildcat. This is very interesting. The next video has a Cape fox, and he is hunting with a striped polecat, which is actually very rare. It's not something you see very often at Tswalu. So I only think there's only one other researcher that has seen it. So for instance, there's about 22 lions on Lechaba. And I've still got a lot of data to analyze. Because I control the mesopredators through landscape of fear or the ecology of fear, that will ultimately affect the small mammal numbers because then there'll be less mesopredators hunting on the small mammals, so the small mammal numbers should technically be higher this side. That's what we're hoping to find in the studies.
After 8 months of research, Roxanne's analyses revealed that there are 5 times more medium-sized predators in the wild dog sector than in the lion sector. This first data confirms Roxanne's intuitions. If the lion population were to increase in Le Habba, it could endanger the whole food chain. Restoring nature, rewilding an area as vast as this one, is a long-term endeavor. Every evening at nightfall, Wendy Penino tirelessly resumes tracking her protégés.
He came across a little pile of dung. It was probably from a zebra or something, and he just rolled in it. And so we think it's either to mask his scent so that predators can't find him, or it's to try and control the parasite load. So they've got ticks and mites on their body, and so they might roll in the dung to try and control for that parasite load. It's very amazing to see. We don't see it very often, so it's very cool. Wow. Amazing. Oh, sorry.
The pangolin is one of Tswalu's most precious treasures.
Pangolin's very unique, and firstly, it's a very rare animal to find in nature. And second of all, it is the most trafficked mammal in the world at the moment. The traditional medicine trade is a very strong thing in certain cultures, and so when people are poaching pangolins, they're usually going for the scales for medicinal purposes or for bush meats as well.
A kilo of pangolin scales is negotiated up to $3,000. In Africa, between 500,000 and 3 million individuals are captured from year to year. And the species has almost disappeared in Asia.
I think with any conservation project or any conservation work that you're trying to do, you really need to understand your animals in the system. And so work like mine, where you're really understanding the intimate details of pangolin's life and really understanding the biology of the animal, will really contribute, I think, at the end of the day, to the conservation of the species.
But for the time being, one thing is sure. Tswalu is about to become an exceptional sanctuary for a variety of endangered species. Here, the brown-maned, long-haired hyenas have found an ideal environment. By the pale moonlight, they can travel up to 50 kilometers to find food. These opportunistic carrion eaters are not picky. They fully enjoy the carcasses abandoned by the large predators. They devour everything, bones included. Once they are sated, they will go back to their burrow. This is Tswalu's best-kept secret. Up to now, nobody has been able to find one. Gus van Dijk is still looking for the wild dog female. After several days tracking her down, he finally picks up the signal from her transmitter. Gus eventually finds her in a faraway sector covered in shrubs. The alpha female has led him right to her burrow. A wonderful surprise awaits Gus. A litter of 13 one-month-old pups, incredibly eager to explore the world around them.
Just looking at the wild dog pack with 3 generations of dogs here, they do represent a success. They represent a success for wild dogs, and they represent a success for Tswalu as a reserve.
During the 10 weeks of gestation, each clan member came in turn to feed the alpha female. Now it's the pups' turn to enjoy the pieces of meat brought to them by the adults. For the next 12 months, they will be pampered by the whole clan. Past that period, to avoid consanguinity issues, this litter born in a small wild dog population will probably be moved to another reserve.
This population on Tswalu will contribute towards the national plan for wild dog recovery, and they will also continue to play their very important role in the evolution of the Tswalu ecosystem. These are just one wheel, one cog in a very big machine that have been restored on Tswalu. And all these parts working together should make this a much healthier and functional ecosystem.
In the other side of the reserve, in the Lehaba sector, lion cubs were born. These new generations of lions and wild dogs reward the work accomplished by the Tswalu teams. They represent a fabulous hope for these large, endangered predators. Restoring the biodiversity in this region damaged by hunting and intensive cattle farming was a crazy gamble, and it's about to be won. Nowadays, over 70 mammals and 240 bird species inhabit Tswalu. Giraffe, baboon, warthog, kudu, wildebeest and oryx cross paths around the watering holes. Over the months spent in this protected environment, the young wild dogs have gained confidence. Now they venture far away from their burrow and follow the adults on their hunting grounds. After 20 years of research, effort, and perseverance, Tswalu Nature Reserve is once again a true wild sanctuary for some of the most endangered species on the African continent. In Mozambique, the largest wildlife reintroduction program in the world has just begun. During several months, teams of veterinarians, keepers and rangers will capture and translocate several thousands of animals.
It was this side, yeah. On the right side, I think it's the best route.
The goal of this spectacular project, organized by the authorities and the Peace Parks Foundation, is to bring Zinave National Park back to its former glory. Created in 1972 to protect elephants, giraffes, and other savanna wildlife, this reserve has been ravaged by years of civil war and intensive poaching. Zinave National Park is located in the southern part of Mozambique. Delimited to the north by the majestic Febvre River, the park covers more than 4,000 square kilometers. Bernard van Lente oversees the repopulation project launched in 2016. Prior to each reintroduction, he checks the state of the park and the water level of the river from the air.
Zinave used to be well known for its huge amount of animals it was supporting. And then unfortunately with the civil war, as with all civil wars, it has a detrimental effect on the national park. Systems collapsed and the animals were poached basically to the point of local extinction. And the bad side of that, of course, is that the vegetation is not being utilized the way it should. You must remember, vegetation is adapted to being grazed by animals, and if that doesn't happen, you actually go into a unnatural state. So although it might look beautiful with all the big trees and things, the diversity is actually lower because there's no recycling of any of the vegetation. So your insect diversity goes down, your bird diversity goes down, and your small predator diversity goes down.
Between 1977 and 1992, 15 years of civil war forced the populations to resort to poaching in order to survive. Only a few small herbivores and animals that have found refuge in the Febvre River escaped the dark times of Mozambique's history. Bernard continues his inspection on the ground to make sure that the survivors won't suffer from the dry season.
Small populations still do survive in these pools that you find all along the river. It's quite deep, like fairly safe there. So these are the core populations for any protection effort in future. You know, your fish will breed in here, the hippos find safe haven. There's a large number of crocodiles can congregate in these pools because it's obviously quite safe. So in terms of the ecology of the park, the river itself, but the pool specifically is very important.
The disappearance of elephants and of large herds of herbivores have upset the plant diversity and reshaped the landscapes. It took only a few years for the bushes and trees to proliferate. Before the war, the savanna occupied 80% of the park's territory. Now it only covers 25% of its surface area. These secular giants that used to tower over the savanna are now the last vestiges of a past wilderness.
These baobabs, they are the witness to Zinave's history. Some of them have been here up to 1,000 years, and they've seen the good and the bad times of Zinave. This baobab is clear evidence that there used to be elephant in the park. You can see this damage or old damage that has healed now. This is where the elephant have stripped the bark from the baobab, especially in dry seasons. These baobabs, they've seen animals disappear over the last few decades. And yeah, we hope they can witness a new chapter in Zinave over the next few years.
The first act of this incredible saga started in 2012 with a highly symbolic gesture, the reintroduction of 7 giraffes. This species had totally disappeared from Mozambique. However, the rewilding operations truly began 4 years later. And the task at hand is colossal. First, the woodlands must be reduced to restore the vast prairies that are vital for the herbivores. For this to succeed, the park's teams are counting on the return of an unbeatable forest destroyer, the elephant. In 2016, during the first reintroduction phase, 8 individuals were released. These heavyweights prepare the ground for the other species.
There's some elephants that crossed here, probably last night. Small group, maybe just 2 or 3 elephants. Let's see.
João Simões de Almeida, a veterinarian specialized in wildlife, checks the impact of each reintroduced species on the environment.
So we can see clearly a tree that has been pushed down. You see lots of elephant signs all over. And this tree has been most likely pushed down by elephants. There's other examples around us. Elephants do a lot of this. Sometimes it's connected to a negative impact that they have on the forest, but actually if it's not too much, it's very, very positive in another critical role that they're playing in the ecosystem. You know, this tree is not dead yet, for example, and so lots of other browsers can come and feed on this rich leaves, well, they otherwise couldn't. They open up the bark of trees, and usually there's lots of insects and termites living in here. And so then animals like birds that feed on insects can come and now they have a new meal that they wouldn't have without the elephants.
Elephants can eat up to 200 kilograms of food per day. By breaking branches and trees to reach the foliage, they open up passages through the wooded areas. Through their action, new clearings are formed. Light reaches the ground once again, and the savanna reappears. These giants open the way for the other large herbivores.
We could say that elephants are both gardeners and architects of the bush. We call them bush engineers because, you know, they play a huge role on making the ecosystem good for a wide range of species. So elephants are a critical component of an ecosystem, and that's why it's so important for Zinave to be bringing up these elephants.
Before the Civil War, there were 1,500 elephants maintaining this immense territory. Today, there are not enough of them to remodel 400,000 hectares of land invaded by bushes and Mopani forests. Therefore, the authorities and the teams at the Peace Parks Foundation have decided to increase their numbers. And there is only one solution for this: to translocate elephants from parks and reserves that have a surplus. This is the case in South Africa, where certain reserves are facing overpopulation problems. This situation is a threat to their ecological balance. In order to control excessive population growth, the authorities in Mkuzi and Itala in the KwaZulu-Natal region have to regularly carry out sterilization or relocation programs. This situation is a godsend for Zinave National Park and for these elephants who will be able to enjoy the vast spaces and the abundance of food. Several major operations are organized to move around 100 individuals. It's a very tense situation because capturing the animals can be risky. Elephants have very strong family and social bonds. In the panic, the elephant calves must at all costs be kept from getting separated from their mothers. Once anesthetized, these heavyweights that can weigh up to 6 tons must be moved with care. The precious cargo not only holds the hope for Zinave's rebirth, it is also an essential part of an even more ambitious project, the creation of a gigantic transfrontier park. Slightly larger than Iceland, the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park will connect 5 large African parks located in Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and South Africa. It will stretch over more than 100,000 square kilometers. Dr. Bartolomeo Soto, the director of the Peace Parks Foundation in Mozambique, is at the heart of this huge project.
Zinave is part of that great dream, which is Transfrontier Conservation Area, which starts in Kruger National Parks and hence up to here, and it also connects with Gona Resort.
In a few years from now, the fences will come down. The animals from the various parks will be able to move freely from one country to the other, meet and reproduce. But for the time being, the agreement between the 3 nations is essentially meant to facilitate wildlife exchanges and transfers between the parks.
This is an example that where the elephants are now in high densities in South Africa, now they are translocated into Mozambique, into Zinave. So our understanding is that these elephants are elephants of everyone. They are moving from South Africa into Zinave without passports, and they are considered citizens of this large ecosystem.
As the months and seasons go by, thanks to the elephants' action, the savannas are gaining ground once again. To keep the bushes and trees from growing back, the teams have decided to reintroduce 250 water bucks taken from Gorongosa, another park in Mozambique. Water bucks are not as specialized and picky as other antelope species. They can eat reeds, rushes, and shrubs. These incredible grazers carry on the elephants' work. At Zinave headquarters, the Director of Operations, Trevor Landry, and Bernard van Lente track the elephants' daily movements, and particularly those of the newcomers.
Each one of these pins represents a collar on a specific time and day. We are looking for some particular collars of an elephant that we would like to go and see how they're settling and which sort of habitat that they are in at this point in time. We're going to go and have a look for these elephant, and if we are unable to physically locate them because of the terrain or the bush, in the evening we'll go down to the pan. We've set up some camera traps, and we will position ourselves there close to where they drink the water, and hopefully that we will be more successful there.
It would look like during the day they're mostly in this area here, and then in late afternoon, evening they move towards the pan. So depending on the time of day we go, we'll look around here.
Yeah.
Late afternoon, probably good to go and look in that area around the pan. You can see any elephants coming to the water in that area.
Over time, the elephants acquire more and more knowledge. They know where to find water and food, even during periods of drought. However, translocated elephants lose their bearings. They are completely disoriented, and family herds are likely to break apart. Trevor Landry would like to make sure that the first elephants reintroduced are still grouped together and that no individual has been lost or gone astray.
Yeah, it still feels warm. So he was here about 30 minutes ago, so he's going to be within a couple of kilometers of here. Okay, so I don't want to get too far behind.
Using a drone is often the best way to spot them because the vegetation is too thick to be able to follow the herd. And ever since they were captured, the elephants have developed a strong fear of humans. At the slightest warning, they go deeper into the woods.
Just because of the experience of the translocation, they are not really comfortable where they are, and it just takes a long time, a year or two, before they settle down and understand their habitat, understand where they are, and before they call it home.
The elephants are not easy to follow. Their movements are unpredictable. They travel ceaselessly and can cover up to 40 kilometers per day. But they can't do without water. This is why Trevor Landry has decided to set up some camera traps close to a waterhole.
As we can see, there's got a lot of elephant sign, so I think we'll move on down here and find a suitable spot along this trail. I think that's a good angle there, and I think we'll put another one over here, just to cover it, elephant coming from this side. I think this will be a good position. Yeah, I think that's good.
The elephants and the waterbucks have accomplished their mission. For the park's teams, the time has come to introduce new species of herbivores.
Every animal in the ecosystem, they play a role. Buffaloes eat this top, very poor, nutritionally poor part of the grass, and that makes the grass, the other portions of the grass, available for other types of grazers. Normally, after the buffaloes eat this top layer, the zebra come and they eat the other layer because they have the teeth. And that leaves just a very nutritional rich part of the grass on the bottom, which is for finer grazers, like small stuff like steenbok, like impala.
Each herbivore has its own speciality. These striped grazers and these herds of ruminants have a complementary action on the vegetation. And they are not the only ones.
You know, buffalo and zebra and the animals that have already been translocated to Zinave, they prepare the grass, they prepare the pasture for other species. So next ones on the list for Zinave are the ones that actually take advantage of having buffalo and zebra there, for example, impala or wildebeest.
Wildebeest, buffaloes and zebras will be the dream team that will rake everything in their way. In order to obtain wildebeest, Zinave National Park can count on another park in the region, Kruger, in neighboring South Africa, where the population of wildebeest has exploded. At daybreak, an impressive operation is already underway. Over 80 people, a helicopter and several trailers have been mobilized to capture the wildebeests.
Yeah, we're just having a look at all the curtains, if they're working and if they're not catching on anything on the ground. And then we're just putting everything in place. Japie, jy gaan die skeidings oorpak, nee?
Lawrence de Lange, the coordinator of South African parks, is seeing to the last details. In order to steer 100 wildebeest towards the lorries, the teams built what they call a boma, a gigantic funnel-shaped corridor that leads to the trailers.
Timothy, if you can just start the day for us, please. Please remember, these animals are dangerous. We've seen it in the past, they will come for you, all right? Especially the wildebeest. We're only planning to do blue wildebeest. Grant, Lawrence. I'm doing well, I'm just briefing the guy, then we're good to go.
The real challenge lies in driving entire herds inside, without leaving behind small, isolated groups. On the ground, things aren't necessarily happening as expected. The wildebeest are stubborn, and they refuse to rush into the boma. Lorenz dives in. It's a dangerous situation. Wildebeests are quite capable of goring a human. The ambush teams finally receive the go-ahead to close the boma.
So far it's going well. Yeah. It's not bad for an hour.
Last individuals are finally driven into the trap that leads them to the trailers.
So it's actually a privilege to take animals there to establish new populations that's been basically wiped out by humans in the past. It's actually quite sad to think about it, that we have to send animals there again because they've become locally extinct.
The convoy doesn't waste any time setting off because the wildebeest will have to survive a 2-day journey. Transporting animals over long distances and in the severe heat often means losses. But it's a risk that must be taken. In Zinave, the rewilding teams are facing a preoccupying situation. With the return of large numbers of herbivores, poaching has resumed. To address this problem, the authorities have created a ranger brigade.
We are at the post named Mayamba. It is divided into 3 sections, each run by 2 inspectors. Each section has a supervisor who is in charge of a team.
These new recruits from local communities are following an intensive training session to strengthen the ranks of the brigade.
Catalina and Milton, come closer.
80 young rangers will now be in charge of protecting the park. Their mission is dangerous because the poachers are unpredictable and often armed.
These are homemade shotguns. They've been made over many, many years. They've learned the art of a homemade. This is actually just a piece of water plumbing pipe. It's very crude. One of these guns can take at least 50 to 100 animals a year. So if you consider the total that I have of over 260, the number of animals that have been saved is quite a large sum.
The operations room is entirely dedicated to the anti-poaching strategy. Thanks to GPS technology, Trevor can follow each ranger brigade's position in real time. This means that he can send reinforcements quickly if a team needs it. To catch the poachers off guard, the armed guards travel discreetly on mountain bikes. The patrols mostly watch over the water points, where the herbivores regularly converge during the dry season. In the absence of lions and leopards, the poachers won't hesitate to travel deep into the more remote areas of the park, several hours away on foot from their villages. They even set up camp for the night. The ashes are still warm. You never need to look very long to find traps or snares. And today, they haven't found 1 or 2 traps, but over a dozen of them.
In this sector, there are a lot of poachers and many snares. We can deactivate 400 to 500 traps per month. It depends on the active operations and the density of the vegetation. Our objective is to clear and protect this area so that no one lays any more traps. And this is why we're here.
These traps are wickedly efficient and leave the herbivores with very slim chances of escape. But the patrol's interventions help to save many animals. However, the situation is changing. Over the last 2 years, the teams of rangers were able to secure more than half of the park.
This is the month of January to October of this year. These are wire snares, Cabo-Dark in Portuguese. The total for the year to date is 11,194. But what is quite evident, you will see the number of snares coming down that we are finding per month. It's getting less and less. And basically what this means, we have saved 11,000 animals in 1 year.
The next animals to be reintroduced in Zinave will be less exposed to poaching. After 2 days on the road, the convoy transporting wildebeests from South Africa is finally approaching. The trip between Kruger and Zinave was hardly an easy ride. Because of the poor state of the tracks and several punctures, the trucks are very late. The wildebeest have suffered. They are exhausted.
It's been a 50-hour journey. They're quite stressed when they get caught, so it's really important to get them offloaded here as soon as possible. They arrive at night. We're not waiting for the next day because it's really important to get them off as soon as possible so they can just relax a bit more. But anyway, I have to go and help now.
Bernard van Lente, João Simões de Almeida and the teams are impatient to free them. After 25 years of absence, these wildebeest will now repopulate the Zinave savannas, joining the 85 zebras and the 100 or so buffaloes that have been released in the park these last months. Buffaloes, zebras and wildebeest are all here. The Savannah Dream Team is now complete. Despite a wealth of precautions, some animals suffered during the trip. João is taking care of a young, exhausted female. The vet leads her away immediately to look after her.
No, they're just giving a bit of fluid. They are a bit, recover a bit. Dehydrated. Yeah, just. Or just even to that side of it. 20 minutes.
Every animal counts, and females are even more precious. The keepers will watch over her part of the night. The return of the wildebeest marks a new step in the rewilding operation. This morning, Bernard van Lente starts his daily inspection of the park in the sector where the wildebeest have just been released.
It's really, really nice and really rewarding to see these animals here. You know, for many years you didn't see wildebeest or things like zebra in this area. And you can see they belong here. They're part of the system. They look right. It feels right to see them. And you can see they also, it's their habitat. They like it here. So it's quite satisfying to see this sort of thing.
It's a good sign, eh?
As for the teams of veterinarians, they have gone back to check on the female. Not only is she dehydrated, but she is also suffering from muscular injuries.
Left side.
Which side was it lying? This side?
It was this side, yeah. On the right side, I think it's the best, right?
Like this?
Yeah, like that, exactly. Myself and Dr. Johan Marai, we did fluid, a couple of other veterinary magic stuff. It seems to be much better today, but still guarded prognosis, so we don't know what's going to happen to her. In mass capture situations, mass captures, when you capture lots of animals at the same time, there's always casualties. Your aim is 0% mortality, but 2% mortality we consider acceptable. And we as vets, as saving the survivors, we're here to minimize them.
Reintroducing wild animals requires constant attention, as well as a lot of energy and devotion. Trevor Landray has retrieved the memory cards from the camera traps he installed near the water point.
There's some warthogs. Yes, we have another warthog and some more warthogs. And some buffalo. Seems to be a herd of buffalo that passed through here, also on its way to the water. We're still looking for the elephant coming through. Yes, we've got some impala now. Okay, finally we have some elephant. And I think I recognize this family group. I believe this group is from Makuzi, northern Zululand. They all look in good health. It was one of the first family groups that arrived here 2 years ago. And it came with a youngster, which was probably 1.5, 2 years old. But now I see it now, it has a smaller baby, which only looks to me about 6 months old, which is very interesting for me because one of the first times that I've actually physically seen this baby calf that was born, the first elephant to be born in Zinave out of all the elephants that have been translocated.
The birth of an elephant calf is wonderful and encouraging news for the future of the species in Zinave. It confirms that this herd has found its bearings and has perfectly adapted to its new environment. But the camera traps have still not shown the last elephant group to arrive in Zinave. Therefore, Bernard van Lente decides to go on a reconnaissance flight to try and localize the last herds and check if the groups have remained cohesive.
We're trying to find the elephant now. They're quite difficult to spot. They've already opened some tracks through the forest where you can see the other animals are using as well. Yeah, I could see buffalo and zebra and stuff down here. Okay, it looks like there's a herd of elephants over there. This looks like about 25 elephants. Very nice to see. Okay, so I can report to Trevor. Herd of elephants, 25, about 2 kilometers south of Zinave Bend.
This flight has confirmed that little by little, the herds are starting to claim this vast territory. At the heart of the forest of thorns and mopanes, the giraffes have also found their home. Anthony Alexander, Senior Project Manager of the Peace Parks Foundation, is very attached to his protégés.
The giraffe is the emblem of the park, so it's our most important species to reintroduce here. And in our first reintroduction 7 years ago, we brought in 7 giraffe, and they've done very well. We've got over 20 now.
These giants that rule over part of the canopy are entitled to special treatment. They occupy an isolated and fenced-off area.
Under the right environment of food, water, no poaching, no predators, the animal numbers tend to escalate very fast, 30% a year. So your numbers can double every 4 years, 3 to 4 years. Another animal such as an elephant or a giraffe, which with a much longer gestation period will only grow at about 6% an annum. We're looking at introducing more, probably up to 200, to get to our carrying capacity of our 18,000 hectare size sanctuary area.
In the absence of predators, water bucks also reproduce very quickly. With at least one youngster per female per year, their population will almost double within 2 years. Their action on the new prairies is impressively efficient. Not one young shoot can resist them. Little by little, new clearings and savannas appear. Zinave can welcome new species. With the regular arrival of animals and the recent translocation of the wildebeest, the teams have recruited villagers to take down some of the fences so that the herbivores may roam all over the park.
I worked in this park since 2016. I was born close to here at Kovan. At the moment, I'm working on the fence. We have to take it down. I don't know what I'm doing next, but I'm happy to work in the park.
The park's rewilding project is important for the local communities. In a few years from now, Zinave will be welcoming tourists and creating jobs, thus developing the region's economy. Week after week, the translocations continue. The teams are taking advantage of the dry season to organize new convoys, because with the rains, the tracks will soon be impassable and the park will become inaccessible. Still slightly dazed, these little herbivores have made it through the trip rather well and will be able to enjoy the vast wild stretches of Zinave without having to fear the slightest predator. Thanks to all the efforts undertaken by the park's teams, Zinave is about to rise from the ashes. Little by little, full biodiversity is returning. In the savannas and the woodlands, species that were thought to have disappeared are back. The insects are quick to recolonize new areas of the park. The great repopulation program will continue for the coming years. Zinave will then count over 1,500 wildebeest, 5,000 zebras, and thousands of impalas. Over time, new generations of small and large herbivores will be born, grow and spread out on this vast territory. These elephant calves will be the founders of new herds that will, in turn, roam this land. The cycle of life is resuming rapidly. In the Save River, the crocodile populations are growing. These cleaners play a key part in the ecosystem. They attack the weakest animals and rid the rivers from carrion or sick fish that could spread diseases. But Zinave Park will not be able to find its true equilibrium without the large predators that control the growth of the herbivore populations.
We are now concentrated in herbivores because that's the first line, and we want to build the population of different species, but we understand that the ecosystem won't work perfectly if it does not have the carnivores, which are still missing. We are looking for next future to introduce hyena. We are going to introduce lions and leopards and eventually cheetah.
Rewilding nature is a long-term endeavor. One day, all the efforts undertaken will help the wildlife in Zinave to conquer new spaces and roam freely in the Great Limpopo Transfrontier Park.
Hopefully, within a few years, we will have a proper, functioning, normal, natural ecosystem, similar to any other major national park in the world. You know, those parks took a long time to establish, maybe 50 years, and we're hoping to actually do it to fast-track this whole process by bringing animals and get to that stage in a shorter time, maybe 10 years from now.
A part of protecting wildlife, we want the local community to feel proud of this park. We want to reconnect the people and the wildlife because they have been living together throughout the years and have been enjoying what the nature gives to them.
On this land devastated by years of war and poaching, women and men are about to accomplish the impossible. To create, out of nothing, one of the most beautiful national parks in the world. Their gamble is about to be won. The land of shining water. This is how the Guarani Indians have named this vast network of prairies and lagoons that once were populated by jaguars, tapirs, and giant anteaters. Located in the north of Argentina, Los Esteros del Ibera stretches over 1,300,000 hectares. In the last century, hunting and intensive farming almost decimated its wildlife. About 20 years ago, an American couple, particularly sensitive to the destruction of biodiversity in the world, bought these lands to protect them and bring the wildlife back. Ever since Douglas Tompkins passed away, his wife Christine has been carrying on this wild dream.
Started here when my husband Doug and I came in 1997, and we landed in what is today San Alonso, an island in the middle of this very, very big wetlands. And wasn't my landscape. I thought it was hot and buggy and flat, and I wanted to leave, but Doug saw something, and here we are all these years later, not only having protected so much of this wetland system, but also began to restore the species that had been extirpated here.
And that is how the most ambitious repopulation program on the American continent was born. But restoring a natural balance is a difficult goal to achieve, because in Argentina, removing wild animals from their habitat is forbidden. The scientists at Ibera can only rely on animals bred in captivity, on parrots raised in cages, incapable of flying, on giant anteaters that have never seen termite mounds, or jaguars that have never met other big cats. To prepare these animals for living in the wild, the Conservation Land Trust, created by the Tompkins, hired specialists from around the world. They have designed unprecedented rehabilitation programs and built rescue centers for the animals. Each infrastructure has its own specialization. To the north of the reserve, the San Cayetano Center is dedicated to the giant anteater. Here, Alicia Delgado has been taking in wounded or orphaned anteaters for 10 years now. This morning, the biologist is taking care of a baby whose mother was killed by hunters outside of the reserve.
He's going to spend a lot of time here in quarantine, maybe 2 months. It will all depend on how he grows and on the test results. In my opinion, he'll be here for at least a year.
Finding the right recipe to replace the mother's milk wasn't easy. Alicia tested several formulas before she found the most appropriate one.
We're going to prepare some milk for the little newcomer. It's a special milk, a maternity milk, prepared and formulated for kittens and puppies. We've tried it on other anteaters before, and it works perfectly well. Every new baby is a challenge for us because we don't know where they came from. We don't know how much they've suffered before arriving here. We don't know how they will react or how they will develop. And when we see them eating well, and they are full of energy and have the will to survive, it's a great satisfaction for us.
San Cayetano cares for around 10 new residents every year. Once weaned, the young anteaters are placed in individual pens where they stay a little over a year before being released. Today's menu, for the older residents, is a fortifying porridge made of milk mixed with dog and cat dry food. Giant anteaters are surprising mammals. They don't have any teeth and do very well without. Their long, sticky tongue is extremely efficient. This is the pen of San Cayetano's oldest resident. Osvaldo arrived when he was very little, a year and a half ago after being hit by a car. He recovered from his wounds and got better. Now, he feeds on ants and termites. Before he can be released, Osvaldo must get used to wearing a harness. He will then be equipped with a transmitter so he can be tracked. The goal of this program is to establish self-sustainable populations in several areas of the reserve. Since 2007, 60 anteaters have been successfully reintroduced. In these vast plains, only a few capybaras, caimans and marsh deer have managed to escape poaching and intensive hunting. 2 decades of protection later, and after having found shelter in the heart of the most inaccessible lagoons, these animals are about to conquer Ibera again. Nicknamed piranha caimans because of their long teeth that stick out from their snouts, Yakari caimans have invaded the shores and shallow waters. They mainly love eating fish, but also enjoy eating capybaras, but only the small ones. As adults, the largest rodents on Earth can weigh up to 70 kilos, measure over 1 meter long, and are particularly precocious. They start mating at the age of 15 months, and each female can give birth to up to 8 pups per year. At that rate, their population is exploding. The marsh deer, emblematic herbivores of the region's wetlands, help to regenerate the ground cover plants. Their populations have also quickly reformed. Nowadays, there are several thousands of individuals in Ibera. However, for a new equilibrium to be achieved, the proliferation of herbivores must be contained. This is usually the role of the largest predator on the South American continent, the jaguar. Unfortunately, this species disappeared from the region over half a century ago. So in 2016, on the island of San Alonso, scientists created an experimental center dedicated to breeding jaguars. Their goal is to be able, one day, to release the jaguars born here.
It will take a long time to create a new jaguar population. It will be the final element in restoring the balance of the ecosystem. Once the pyramid is complete, obviously with the jaguar at the top, the ecosystem will be able to auto-regulate.
Maite Rios Noya, biologist, is leading this unprecedented reintroduction project. She takes in jaguars that were in captivity. They are too used to humans and cannot be released in the wild. So the scientists have designed a unique breeding program. One where the offspring of these jaguars will be released into the wild. Two males and 2 females have been placed in 4 adjoining enclosures. After several attempts at bringing the animals together, one of the 2 females, Tanya, has accepted to mate. She was immediately separated from the others and moved to a large 30,000 square meter pen. If she gives birth, the cubs will be able to grow in the wild without any contact with humans. The scientists will watch over Tanya from a distance, thanks to a camera that films her breeding pen day and night. Meanwhile, Maite is hoping that the other female, Isis, will also accept the advances of one of the 2 handsome males.
Isis is half domestic. She gives us a lot more work. She's shy, and it's an odd situation because she's afraid of jaguars. You can see how much she hesitates to enter the passage because, at the end of the day, she's slightly afraid of the other jaguar. It's as if she were caught between two worlds. She's not sure if she is human or if she is a big cat.
Unlike lions, who are social animals, jaguars are fearful and solitary. Special meeting areas have been arranged to help them get to know each other better. Maite regularly opens the passage that connects the pens so that Isis may get acquainted to Chiqui.
They are very expressive in their behavior. I think it's obvious that she's not very receptive. She's being defensive because she's frightened. Bringing them together is important because that's how they learn to get to know each other, recognize each other's smell. As you can see, Chiqui is not at all aggressive. He's really a well-balanced animal. He stays calm while she follows his movements. She doesn't flee, which is a good sign. In the beginning, she was afraid to go in, and sometimes just left.
Nonetheless, Isis still hasn't succumbed to Chiqui's irresistible charm. Here, everything is a question of time and patience. The biologist won't know if Tanya is expecting before the end of her gestation period, 3 months from now. At the same time, on the island of San Alonso, a delicate operation is underway. Camila Camarena Valleros, in charge of monitoring the anteaters, and Jorge Peña Martinez, the veterinarian, have to sedate Mercedes, a young female giant anteater in full growth. Her harness has become too tight, and there is a risk it will wound her. It really needs to be changed. Before they can handle her, she will need a light anesthetic. Mercedes is not mistrustful, but if she tries to struggle, her claws can be very long and sharp.
As soon as the animal is immobilized, we'll be able to check her physical state and ensure her vitals are stable. We will take her temperature, check her heart and breathing rates, and her oxygen saturation.
All the released animals are monitored by radio tracking. The scientists can therefore check their state of health, ensure that they are adapting well to their new environment and reproducing. The data collected will be very useful for future reintroduction programs in other parts of South America.
When it's the right time, we'll remove her harness and we'll continue monitoring her through the camera traps and the tag she has on her ear.
Mercedes comes around slowly. She is still a bit dazed, but it won't be long before she is back on her feet. Day after day, the reintroduction programs intensify. North of the lagoon in Cambireta, biologists are preparing for the return of the red and green macaws. Having been hunted for so long for their beautiful feathers, this species completely disappeared from Argentina over a century ago. In 2015, scientists built a vast aviary so the macaws could practice flying.
This is Buddha and Paulo. The female, Paulo, was taken away from a private individual who was holding her illegally. Buddha comes from a zoo. They formed a couple following multiple attempts to bring together several individuals, a process that allows compatible animals to find each other. So now we are training them, and when they reach a comparable level of flight, we can move on to the pre-release step and eventually release them.
Marianela Massad and Alejandro Benitez oversee the rehabilitation of captive-bred red and green macaws. To encourage them to fly, their trainers use a sound stimulus and a feeder placed on the other side of the aviary. For each successful flight, the macaws get a reward. The rewilding process can be long and tedious.
The time needed to learn how to fly varies a lot from one individual to the next. For some, it may take up to a year.
This training is only the first step in the rehabilitation program. Macaws that succeed in their aviary training will continue their exercises in the open.
There are no true forests in Ibera. There are no continuous woodlands. Instead, there are only small treed patches. Therefore, at first, we need to make sure that they are strong enough to fly over long distances. Then, once freed, we call this progressive release. They learn how to travel short distances and get to know the area. This repetitive training will help them to get into the habit of flying to forests further away.
They're ready. Can you call them?
Without any previous examples to follow, the biologists have had to invent devices that they adapt through success or failure.
Could you call them?
Okay, I'll call them right now.
During the first release, some of the parrots disappeared and others were not strong enough to fly long distances. Therefore, Alejandro and Marianela developed new training exercises to improve their flight endurance. The macaws will also grow accustomed to looking for food in the canopy. This rehabilitation program requires a lot of patience and dedication.
Usually, the whole training process can last a few months until we decide to stop the exercise. Once they've grown familiar with the area and are able to find food on their own. We estimate that 20 individuals capable of breeding would be a good start for creating a population. When I see the macaws flying free in the wild, I see the positive outcome of a long and arduous process and all the hard work we put into the project.
After 4 years of effort, 3 couples are finally living in the wild. Thanks to increasingly efficient methods, other parrots, such as Buddha and Paulo, will progressively join them. But will they be able to breed? For certain species, returning to the wild is easier for some than for others. That's the case for tapirs. The 7 adult tapirs released between 2016 and 2018 have had no trouble finding their bearings. In the thickets bordering the Great Lake, they are devoting themselves to their favorite hobby, gardening. Thanks to their feces, the largest herbivores in South America disperse the seeds of the fruit and plants they eat. By doing this, they play a major role in the regeneration of the forests. This morning, Ana Carolina Rosas and the team of vets are paying a visit to Nena, a female who is used to humans. Carolina has high hopes for Nena, who is already the mother of Arandu, a young 1.5-year-old tapir.
Arandu is very special to us because he's the first tapir born in Ibera after a long period of absence of the species. Can you just lower the screen, please? Now we're going to do the ultrasound on Nena. We know that she's fertile and that there's a male out there somewhere. We're just checking to see if maybe there is a nice surprise for us. Right now, we're doing a quick checkup to see if there is something, but we can't see anything yet.
Ana Carolina's intuitions will be confirmed.
There. There's a baby. We can see it. Its little spine is here. Great. This is really great. Well, I think this is really happy news for the whole team. This is when you really see the results of all the effort we put in. There are a lot of people monitoring each of these animals. And now that we can see that they are breeding, this is really encouraging. It means we can hope that the population will be able to manage on its own, without us. It's like a dream come true. This is great news.
Deep in a thicket, another mother is hiding her newborn. Although she was raised in captivity, this female named India has not lost her maternal instinct. Ever since her offspring was born, she's been traveling exclusively through the undergrowth where she can find shelter. This is the 3rd tapir born in Ibera. There's still a long way to go. The scientists reckon that around 50 individuals are necessary to establish a self-sustaining population. Little by little, Species that had disappeared are reclaiming the Esteros del Ibera. The small groups of collared peccaries released over the last years are quickly repopulating the shrubland forest. The great arrears, the largest birds on the American continent, are roaming the pampa in search of foliage, insects, and seeds. The presence of these animals also means the return of many bird and insect species. Over time, the biodiversity is regaining its rightful place. Only the jaguar is still missing, but it shouldn't be long before this big cat roams the vast pampas again. 3 months have gone by. In the San Alonso Center, thanks to the camera constantly filming Tanya's lair, Maite Rios was lucky to witness an incredible moment.
¿Qué es lo que me llama la atención? Yo llego exactamente en este momento.
I arrived exactly at that moment, and what do I see? I looked closer and I saw something black. I was very surprised, and at first I thought, is that a rat? I couldn't believe it, so I stayed there for a while to see what it could be. It was very moving.
Maite had a hard time believing it was a jaguar cub. This birth is historic.
Estas imágenes son muy importantes.
These images are very important for us. This first jaguar cub, and this image that we can't see very well, we were very lucky to get better ones later, just reminds me of all the hard work and effort that so many people put into this crazy project. The first hurdle has been crossed.
Y bueno, que el primer paso ya está. Primeras imágenes.
And here they are, the first images.
Another surprise awaited Maite.
Y aquí nace el segundo.
And this is when the second cub was born.
El segundo cachorro. Aquí ya la alegría además fue
It was a shared moment of great happiness for all those team members present. It's historic. In scientific terms, not only is it interesting to see the birth, but also the way the mother immediately cared for the cub.
No solo el nacimiento, sino los primeros cuidados que da la hembra.
The magical part of it is that a female raised in captivity gave birth to wild cubs born with their natural instinct. And if we manage them correctly, we will be able to release them into the wild.
Up until now, no attempt to reintroduce jaguars born in captivity has ever been made. In order to meet this challenge, the scientists in Ibera have designed a very strict protocol. These 2 cubs, born after 100 days of gestation, will grow up in this large pen, away from humans. In a few months, capybaras or peccaries will be regularly released inside so that the young jaguars can practice hunting. At the Anteater Center in San Cayetano, it's Osvaldo's big day. He's in great shape, and Alicia Delgado feels that the time is right to give him back his freedom. It will be a long trip, 6 hours on roads and trails, to reach the northwest of the reserve, to finally return him to the wild.
We're in San Nicolas, an area inside Ibera National Park, and this is very important because Osvaldo is the first anteater to be released here. This means that he will be one of the founders of a new population of giant anteaters in this environment.
You've cared for him since he was little.
Yes, he was this big. When he arrived, he weighed 1.9 kilos. Now he weighs 42 kilos. You poor thing. He already wants to be freed. To me, he'll always be the little baby he was when he arrived, which is why this is a very special moment. To have come this far and know that he's going to be released, it's very moving for us to think that he's overcome all the hardship and will now become a free animal.
Osvaldo will stay in this acclimatization pen for approximately 10 days. The time to grow accustomed to this new environment.
Could you hand me the termite mound? Put it on here. We're placing termite mounds all around so that he can find some food when he comes out. Okay, that'll be enough. Let's go. Get up. Come on, big guy. Get up. The truth is that it's a very emotional moment. Even though we've already released lots of animals, I can't help getting emotional every time. And to see that he's fine, that he came out of the cage perfectly, that he's already checking out his pen and looking for ants, it's like the end of a perfect cycle in my work, and for me personally.
In a few months, more giant anteaters will join Osvaldo to repopulate the area of San Nicolas. 2 generations of anteaters have already been born in Ibera. Their numbers went from 60 to over 150 individuals in the space of a decade. At this rate, the overall population will be self-sustainable in about 10 years. Although there are many births, each one of them is precious for the biologists. Several times a week, Rafael Abuin and Camila Macarena Vallejos check the health of the newborns.
Come, we'll stop her from the front. You can see the cub well. Quiet. As soon as they are born, the cubs automatically climb onto their mother's back, usually at the rear of her body, glued to her tail. They form a sort of line that blends in with their mother's silhouette, hidden from predators. They'll spend around 6 to 7 months with their mother. This was the habitat where ant and termite predators were still missing. And it's true that ever since we've reintroduced these anteaters, we've noticed that they are thriving because each of these monticules of tall grass shelter a host of ants. There is plenty of food for him here.
This improbable creature can measure up to 2 meters long and oddly enough, is part of the sloth family. The giant anteater is ambling idly from one termite mound to the other. Its 60-centimeter long tongue is coated in a sticky saliva that allows him to eat up to 30,000 ants and termites a day. He can flick his tongue out up to 150 times per minute, and by doing so, he controls the proliferation of anthills. On the other side of the reserve, in Ibera, the released macaws are also under high surveillance. Marinela also monitors the red and green macaws that were reintroduced into the wild. As of now, around 10 individuals have successfully completed the rehabilitation program and earned their freedom. This morning, she's off to look for one of the first couples released in an area of forest patches. The scientists are counting on them to repopulate the region. These frugivore birds play an important role in the ecosystem. During their travels, they spread seeds and encourage the development of forests.
This is Gnocchi and Sopa, a red and green macaw couple. Gnocchi is the male and Sopa is the female. They arrived at the center around 3 years ago, but it's only been a year and a half since they formed a couple and live in the wild. Sopa comes from the zoo in the province of Córdoba, and Gnocchi comes from a rehabilitation center in the province of Corrientes. They are eating a fruit called paradise. This couple can now feed on its own. They have become self-sufficient, and they eat a lot of native fruit.
Gnocchi and Sopa are a close-knit couple, and it shouldn't be long before they nest. To encourage them to mate, the scientists have installed 5 nest houses for them.
This species uses hollows in the trees to nest. When they find one, they enlarge it with their beak until it's big enough to shelter the female and the eggs. But in this area, there are very few trees with hollows, so we place artificial nests that the macaws can find easily and make a nest in.
The young woman must climb 25 meters to check the contents.
So I've just found 3 eggs from a Tito alba, which is a barn owl. This is typically a species that occupies the nests we've installed for the macaws. But because it's a protected species, I'm going to leave the nest as it is.
While waiting for the births, the biologists can count on the arrival of 15 new red and green macaws from London. These 8 females and 7 males will allow them to establish a self-sustainable population in the years to come. Meanwhile, in an aviary especially set up for them, strange-looking birds are impatiently waiting for their carer and their breakfast. Red-legged Seriemus are not discreet. It's most probably for this reason that hunters in this region were able to exterminate them.
Every morning we come and feed the red-legged Seriemus with minced meat, liver, and eggs. We also give them a supplement of boiled vegetables and fruit. For example, grapes. This species disappeared from Ibera some time ago. I believe it's important that every eradicated species from an ecosystem returns to their rightful territory. This bird mainly eats insects, small rodents, reptiles, and amphibians. Therefore, its principal role in the ecosystem is this: to reduce the numbers of small animals. They love hard-boiled eggs. They don't eat them every day, only a few times a week. Today, this species no longer exists in Ibera. These are the first arrivals since the beginning of the reintroduction program. These animals come from the rehabilitation center in Aguara. Before that, they lived in the Corrientes Zoo. They adapt pretty quickly. We will keep them here for about 2 weeks, and then we will release them, and they'll be monitored with transmitters. Equipping some animals with transmitters will allow us to know, after their release, their movements and see if they stay in the area or if they decide to go further away. At the moment, we have 4 males and 1 female in the aviary. It's the first time in Ibera that a reintroduction attempt of this species has been made. It's a real challenge for us. We have to keep moving forward and hope everything will work out all right.
These noisy birds, 90 centimeters tall, will very quickly be roaming the plains and lagoons of Esteros de Ibera in search of high grasses where they can feed. Soon, other red-legged Seriemus will join them in order to repopulate these vast protected open spaces. Not far from there, in the jaguar reproduction pen, the anesthetist is back at work. This time, Jorge's patient is Chiqui, the father of the 2 little jaguar cubs.
Today, we are anesthetizing Chicky in order to take some samples for his exit certificate. Chicky is supposed to leave next week to return to his home in Paraguay. Before he can be transported back, we have to run tests that certify that his state of health is in accordance with the sanitary norms in place between Argentina and Paraguay. From the beginning, his sperm tests were always very good. He quickly mated with a female, and they had the 2 little ones. Now he can leave because he has accomplished his mission, and in order for us to maintain a good genetic diversity in Ibera, we don't want those animals that have reproduced to have many cubs.
In the jaguar cub pen, Tanya, their mother, has also been anesthetized, so the veterinarians can examine the newborns. The team is wearing protective gear to avoid transmitting bacteria or viruses to the cubs. This is the first time they will meet humans, and probably the last. Maite will take a sample of their DNA and vaccinate them. But most of all, she'd like to know their sex. The checkup shows that there is a male and a female. Arami and Mbarete will be separated from their mother and moved to a 30-hectare enclosure in about 15 months' time. Once they are 2 or 3 years old, and when they've perfected their hunting technique, they will be released on this land where no jaguar has roamed for 50 years. In the coming years, the San Alonso Center will continue the breeding program and welcome new jaguars. Without these predators, the Esteros del Ibera would not be able to auto-regulate. Creating self-sustainable macaw, giant anteater, and tapir populations will take several years of ceaseless rewilding operations.
I would say that it's one of the projects that we're most proud of over the last 27 years. My dream for all wildlife, including these macaws or the jaguars or anteaters, tapirs, the peccaries, is that they are free to evolve in protected areas for all time, that there are limits to human activity such that all life on Earth is cherished, dignified, and respected. That's my whole story, really.
Day after day, Ibera is becoming Ibera again. Thanks to the efforts of passionate and committed women and men, the reserve is now listed as a national park in Argentina.